Jaxson Dart says the 2024 opener Saturday is going to be about the running backs. You know what? He's right.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Rebel fans. I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today, we're diving into the Furman Paladins. And Jaxson Dart and Lane Kiffin, they've emphasized just how crucial the running game is going to be on Saturday. And they're absolutely right. With Ulysses Bentley and Parrish Jr. in the backfield, the Rebs are poised to dominate. But keep an eye out for Rashad Amos. He might just have a breakout game on Saturday. I think the magic number in rushing yards might be around 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. That kind of stat line would leave Ole Miss feeling confident against a solid FCS defensive line. Thanks for tuning in today, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hotty toddy, everyone. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. And don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC, or even Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy. They provide different perspectives on college football, the SEC, and even Ole Miss. And you know how I feel about perspectives. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, this is going to be our first Keys episode of the season. It is going to be at least interesting, because anybody that has seen what I've been doing over the course of the last year and the way we built up to this season knows that my goal this season is to make the playoffs. It is a playoffs or bust season. And this Furman Paladin game, with Ole Miss being a 42-point favorite in this game and Furman being a 42.5-point underdog, the over-under at 60.5 points, basically they're projecting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 52-10. Is what they're projecting in this game. That's the ballpark of what they expect this game to be. And Ole Miss is going to have keys in this game. They're going to be real keys for Ole Miss to make the playoffs. You're going to hear people talk about all week how you're not going to be able to tell much from a Furman Paladin game. You're not going to be able to learn anything about the Ole Miss Rebel team. But that's not true. Defeating Furman, that's a foregone conclusion, but you can learn about this team. And specifically, the running game is going to play a major key. As Lane Kiffin and Jaxson Dart said, they did in the mock game scrimmage, they were able to run the ball well. The emphasis has been on the run game, especially in the early part of the season. This game is going to be about that ground and pound. Ulysses Bentley, Parrish Jr. and Rashad Amos, they are going to be key, because they are going to set a cascade effect to all these good things that can happen have to start right there. You do not want Jaxson Dart and the wide receivers to show out and go absolutely nuts. You just don't. You don't want to put that on film. You want this to be as vanilla and simple as possible. And the easiest way to do that is by running a bunch of inside and outside zone plays over the course of 60 minutes in a game that you absolutely walk over the opponent. I think that Ulysses Bentley, Parrish, and Rashad Amos are going to be key, but I do think Dominic Thomas and I think Matt Jones, they're going to make an appearance as well. Now, speaking of that, number 2, get these starters out of the game, and the margin of victory is going to be on the backups. If you want a true blowout, if you want a 70-10 game, it's going to be on the backups to get it done. I think whenever you're up by 30 points in this game, you get the starters out of the game, and whatever happens, happens. Because this season is about a 16-game season, not a 12-game season, and you want to take as much wear and tear off the players as you can. We saw in the kinder, gentler fall camp. We saw in spring practice. Everything has been about taking the wear and tear off of these players. And number 3, you're going to hear me say this over the course of the next 4 weeks a lot. Play clean. And even beyond then, honestly. Avoid injuries and play clean. That is going to be a massive key towards Ole Miss being playoff ready come December. Those are the three keys in this game. And we're starting off with the run game. And Jaxson Dart and Lane Kiffin brought that up almost unprompted. And whenever they talk about a key strategy thing, this is a situation where Lane Kiffin and Jaxson Dart are talking about this to let Furman know. They want Furman to know that the running game is coming because they want them to bow up as well as they can. Let's see if Ole Miss can run the football. It is the mano-a-mano thing. It is old school football. It might be out of the shotgun. It might be out of tempo, but it's still, let's bow up against the team you're supposedly physically superior to and see what happens. Again, Furman has a pretty good defensive line, but that's about it. They were a playoff team a year ago. I think they are probably ranked in the FCS poll, but the quarterback that was so effective for the Furman Paladins, he moved on to Jacksonville State. He's not there. So they had to make a lot of changes. So this isn't the same Furman team that maybe Ole Miss fans might be expecting. So run the ball, get out of there. We know in the new clock rules, we know when all of this going on. In the Georgia Tech Florida State game, there were 7 offensive possessions for each team. Basically, at the early part of the season, basically an under is free money because the scoring patterns that people are going off of when they set these lines, they haven't quite adjusted just yet. So 52 points, that might be a bridge too far for Ole Miss football, and that is okay. You do not need a true blowout. You can take a 42-10. You can take a 42-7 and be perfectly fine moving into the next games against Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. The important thing is to come out of this game and run the ball effectively. I do think 250 yards and 4 touchdowns, that is going to be a key. You have Ulysses Bentley IV, who was rated as the number 1 returning running back in all of the SEC this year. 95 carries, 540 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was the guy that stepped up against Arkansas, against Vanderbilt, even against LSU. He made plays and explosive plays, and he is a probably better fit for Ole Miss's offense. So we'll see if he can do the outside run stuff and become more of an every down type running back. I'm not asking him to be Quinshon Judkins. I'm asking for 150 to 175 carries. That is what I want to see from Ulysses Bentley. But the way you can see is against a supposed overmatched team, how is he going to do as well? Henry Parrish Jr., the guy who transferred back from Miami after transferring to Miami, is back on the offense as well. I describe Henry Parrish as a keep the trains moving type running back. He is somebody that is going to help. That's the role that he played the first stint that he was in Oxford, Mississippi, and that is going to be very important for him as well. Rashad Amos is a guy, though, that I think has a chance to have a very, very impressive football game for Ole Miss in this game. He is the one that has the Snoop Connor type ability, maybe plus Snoop Connor, because he's 235 pounds. Whenever you're playing against a very overmatched team, I think in the second half, Rashad Amos just has a chance to eat, especially with Ole Miss being supposedly too deep on the offensive line. That means when the starters come out of the game, you're still going to have starter level competition as well. I think Ole Miss has like 250 starts or some ludicrous amount on their offensive line this season. So we'll see exactly how it goes. It's not a situation to where you want to play ball control football. You're not like Derek Mason at Vandy. You know, the offense at Stanford, that's not the same thing. But in this game, one of the keys for Ole Miss is going to be, can you run the ball when they know it's coming? Simple as that, without having to break out exotic plays and do things that you're not expecting against an FCS opponent. Can you run the ball when they know it's coming? And can Ulysses Bentley, can Henry Parrish, can Rashad Amos be the guys for you this season? You're going to get those questions a little bit answered, because the reality is just because somebody has a good game, that doesn't answer the question. This is going to be all about the look test. If somebody has 7 carries for, 59 yards, and they're pretty consistently 10 yards per pop, you probably know that you have something there. If you have 7 carries for 59 yards and one of the runs is a 54-yard run, that is a problem and a red flag. That's because an FCS opponent busted it. It's going to be about the look test more than anything else, and I think Ole Miss can go a long way to see exactly what they have in the running back position going against this FCS opponent, even though it's an FCS opponent. Like I said, their defensive line is actually pretty good, so Ole Miss's offense is probably going to have to strain a little bit. Again, it's not MTSU, it's not Wake Forest, it's not Georgia Southern, it's definitely not Kentucky or LSU, but it does give you a good look of what's going on because they're going to be pretty well coached indeed. Up next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we talk about the starters and the role that the backups are going to play in this football game. Stick around to find out about that. Grab a 5-hour energy shot to stay alert to watch all of your favorite college football games. Or if you stayed up late last night to watch an intense overtime game, take the 5-hour energy shot in the morning so you can start your day. 5-hour Energy is a brand for hardworking people like you. They've been trusted for over 20 years to give them an alert, energized feeling that they need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5-hour energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience store, drugstore, or grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-pack to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5-hour energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy products, you should probably do that today. And you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all one word, all capital letters, to receive $20 off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12 fans. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college football experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their conference? Everything you need to know is all in one place. To be sure to follow and subscribe them to make sure that Locked On College Football podcast is part of your everyday routine. They're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So this is a game to where Ole Miss needs to get the second level players into the game. This is a game that Ole Miss needs to get off to a quick start, get the starters out of the game so there's not so much wear and tear on their bodies. And it's going to be up to the backups, like we said, to control whether or not this is a blowout or not. From backup quarterback, we'll find out who the backup quarterback that comes into the game, who that is going to be. From Aiden Williams and Caden Lee and all of these storylines that we heard is going to be on them. It is going to be imperative for Ole Miss to get off to a good start. Run the football, get off the field, get up by 30 points, and get the backups into the game. From quarterback to defensive line to linebacker, the whole 9 yards, get the backups into the game. Because it's going to be important to do that. Whenever you have a player like Jaxson Dart, he's not going to put up big numbers, and I get that everybody's going to say, well, you should probably want to pad some stats to win the Heisman. But I say to you, is the goal to win the Heisman Trophy, or is the goal to go as far as you can in the absolute playoff and perhaps win the whole enchilada? I'm sure even Jaxson Dart will tell you that's big. So against Furman, against the Paladins, do not get exotic. Get the starters out of the game so they don't have to worry about it. When you have a Trey Harris, the same thing. You do not want him to get injured like he did against Tulane a year ago. Get him out of the game as soon as possible. Defensive players as well. Walter Nolan. You know that Walter Nolan can make plays in the game. You do not need Walter Nolan playing in the fourth quarter of a 50-point game against the Furman Paladins. You need him ready to go against MTSU, against Wake Forest, against Georgia Southern, more so than the Furman Paladins. And that is not even including the SEC slate that is coming up for him. You want to get Princely some reps. I do think that Princely and Monmielen is going to be ready to play some in that game, but you don't want to play him too much. 10 to 15 snaps, that might be all that you're asking. Turn it over to a Chris Hardy. Let him happen as the backup as quickly as possible, and then get him out of the game as well to where it becomes a Cam Franklin type situation for Ole Miss football. You know, Micah Davis and those guys should be playing quite a bit in the game. Micah Davis should be on the field quite a good bit. He should be returning kicks. He should be basically one of the superstar wide receivers of this Furman Paladin game. The backups are going to be key for this game. If you want a blowout, it's going to be on the backups to make it happen. And you know what, guys? That's not a bad thing. Again, if your goal is the college football playoff, if your goal is to make a long run in that playoff, you need to limit as much wear and tear as you can. And that means getting out on these people and getting the starters out of the game as quickly as possible. Yes, I understand that people have not seen any Ole Miss football over the last, year and since the Peach Bowl. I understand that they dropped $100 per tickets to get into the game. I understand that they want to see their heroes and their kids get to see their heroes. But for Ole Miss to look better against Georgia, they might need to get the starter out of the game against the Furman Paladins. It's just the way this worked. It's a situation. You think about Steve Spurrier when he was at Florida. You don't want to run up the opponents. There's too many games. There's too many things that can happen. There's too many roulette wheels that become an issue if you just decide to get greedy and run up the score. Get these starters out of the game. That comes with a solid run game and a quick start. Get the starters out of the football game, and the backups, let them turn loose. Now, I will say this as well. One more time, just to remind everybody. I think it was either in 2017 or 2018. It might have been 2017 when Jalen Hurts was the starting quarterback at Alabama, the year that Alabama won their last national championship, or the next to last national championship. Jalen Hurts had Alabama up like 31-0, 31-3, something like that, something obscene. And everybody got excited when Jalen Hurts came out of the game because he was playing really well. Alabama put in Tua Tagovailoa. And at that point, you knew that it was all over. I think Alabama ended up scoring 70 points or something that night against Ole Miss. The point is, if the backups show up and the backups play at the level that we think the backups are, the backups playing should not be a problem at all for Ole Miss football. Not in this game, not in any of the first four games. So we'll see exactly how that goes as well. Coming up next, we are going to look at why Ole Miss has to play clean and they have to avoid injuries. Again, it all cascades down. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Stay tuned. Hey, Locked On Ole Miss fans, I do want to take a moment to give you a heads up on this brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. It's called Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of the head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach at Ole Miss? Of course you can. Now you can do that. From recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. Now it's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can also play on the go as you want, when you want to. And of course, we have this special offer for Ole Miss football fans, Locked On Ole Miss football fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, all one word, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. That's Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Really interesting stuff. And the last key in this game is going to be a standby key, essentially, for the first 4 weeks and even probably beyond that, because it's important. And I think it's important for Ole Miss to play well. And that is that Ole Miss needs to play clean. Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern cannot beat Ole Miss unless Ole Miss helps them. They can't. Furman is a 42-point underdog against Ole Miss. For Furman to win the game, Ole Miss has to help Furman a lot. That's just the way this works. The offense not working. It's very sloppy. Penalties, turning the ball over, and turning the ball over in horrible spots. That is how you keep a team like Furman or Middle Tennessee or these early type opponents in the game. It is going to be imperative for Ole Miss football to play clean. No turnovers, no penalties, no operations, know exactly what you're going through. This is one of the reasons the mock game happens. The mock game, I've said all the time, and I said yesterday, is about everything except the football on the field, the operation of the coaches talking to each other, the coaches in the normal position that they're going to be, the stretching lines, the way that's going to look, the substitution patterns, who is going to be where, what it looks like. With the technology that is going on, how do you divide up that stuff? That is why Ole Miss and everybody else has a mock game, so they can get used to that. With everything that's going on, Ole Miss needs to play clean. If you look out on the field and Ole Miss has 10 players in the formation, they're not playing clean. If you see Ole Miss having false starts, they're not playing clean. If they're snapping the ball late, if they're not able to run their jet sweeps and all that, they're not playing clean. And every time and everything they do that is not clean gives Furman a better chance to be in the football game. That is the way this works. Whenever Ole Miss plays at the level that they can play, whenever they play really, really well, a team that does not have the talent that they have needs help to catch up to them. So Ole Miss not playing well, coming down to the level is going to be important for these non-conference opponents. Ole Miss preseason 6th in the country. If Ole Miss wins the game and just chalk happens going up to that LSU game, Ole Miss could be 1 or 2 in the entire country going into that LSU game. Ole Miss needs to play clean. And the last key that we're going to put in with that is Ole Miss needs to avoid injuries. That's the reason getting the starters out of the game and running the ball effectively, they are major keys for Ole Miss to beat the Furman Paladins, or make it on the way to the playoffs. Get through these games so they can be a playoff level team. I think Ole Miss, injury-wise, they're in better shape than they make up, let on. They just are. They have a situation that Lane Kiffin puts people in black jerseys, and you ask about injuries, and he doesn't talk about injuries. It's not because the player's injured. It's because the load management or whatever is going on. He controls the narrative of the players on his roster, and he's done a fantastic job of training the media to ask certain questions in the press conference. They don't ask the questions that need to be asked because he's not going to answer it. They're going to ask the stuff that makes it just irrelevant. At the press conference yesterday, he did a masterclass of just saying nothing. Jaxson Dart has taken on the personality of his coach, although he did say a little bit more over the course of the press conference than Lane Kiffin. Hey, a Thunder Boomer just broke out. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I'm pretty fired up. But when you look at the keys to beating Furman, the keys to beating Furman is probably just be the better team. But the keys to using Furman to go towards the playoffs, these are the 3 keys that you need to go off. We'll go over them again. This game is about ground and pound Jaxson Dart and Lane Kiffin talked about the running game, and the running game was a huge part of the mock game as well with Ulysses Bentley, Henry Parrish, and Rashad Amos. I am really curious to see exactly what that looks like. The next thing is to have a quick start on the ground game. I want 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is my benchmark for what I want. And then get the starters out of the game, and the margin of victory that's going to be left up to the backup players, and play clean and avoid injuries so that it can be massive during the stretch. You want to be better during Georgia than you are against the Furman Paladins, and all of this is going to make that happen. I am pretty fired up about what Ole Miss football can be. This is the most anticipated football season potentially in the history of the program, at least since 1970. And we'll see exactly how that goes. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for all things Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on being the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the #1 Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. And now go check out Locked On College Football podcast at next. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You'll find the link to Locked On College Football in the descriptions down below, so you don't even need to search for it. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And after the game on Saturday, on the Locked On College Sports 24/7 streaming channel, it's going to be reaction show after reaction show after reaction show on that channel. It's going to do very well, I assume, that day. So go to the Locked On College Football podcast, hit subscribe to that. The 24/7 stream is on that channel, and also download the Zeam app, Zeam, on your phone and on your Roku or Amazon Fire devices, because there is a program guide on the Locked On streaming channels as well, so you can see what's coming. Pretty cool stuff. Anyway, another thing that we have is exciting news. So you can become a Locked On Ole Miss insider. It's the best and easiest way to stay updated on all things Ole Miss sports. It's a texting program that sends you notifications on everything relevant without the hassle of message boards filled with trolls. Enjoy a 14-day free trial and experience the future of college sports. We're going to do things like in between the first and the third quarter, we're going to give our basically take of what is happening and the things that you should take away from the game that is going on. And it doesn't matter if it's Furman or Georgia. We're going to do that every week, and we're adding new perks as we grow. So do not miss out. The link is down in the description. For those of you watching on YouTube, we're going to send you to Locked On College Sports right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.